um, on me and the way that this, yeah, you can see it. So, architectural illustration. It's a very precise way to depict the world. And so when I really began painting for myself, I decided to go back to my sketchbook. So,
It's not down.
I'm coming.
okay.
This is me. There we go.
Okay. So I just do little studies that sometimes become, paintings, sometimes just stay studies. Both of these are probably good candidates for paintings. And then just sort of draw around town wherever I am. I think that's actually one of the demos from the book. So I keep a public sketchbook that I share with people, and then I have a private one. And the private one I do a lot of writing in and things like that, which is why when I'm asked about what's the one thing I can do to improve my watercolors, draw from life. That's the first lesson. You can hang a decent painting on or a poor painting on a pretty decent drawing. The opposite is rarely the case. So understanding that you've got to do a lot of work before you get to these latter stages is just part of that process and something that I embrace. So, and then also drawing with the brush, and I'll talk about that in the workshop. And just some play. A couple more pieces. So today we are going to paint a little harbor scene.
If I turn up this light.
That's fine.
Is that too dark?
I don't think so.
This one?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, good.
This is St. Andrews Harbor. So, and it's just where it comes out and goes into the sea. But I like these back alleys. This is usually what I look for when I'm choosing subjects. But I'm still going to reorganize things. If we look at the roof levels on this, see that they're all sort of in line. And that to me was a bit of a distraction. I knew that I needed to manipulate that. I want to get this feel of distance on the hills. So here's a quick.
If you want to zoom that, if you reach up, yeah, right there.
So that is a fairly quick sketch I did this morning in the hotel room. Well,
Sorry.
20 minutes, I don't know. And then I'm not bragging.
So you use strong vertical lines throughout your sketch, I see.
Well, that's just the way I've been taught to draw. So I was taught to draw by an architect, or in the School of Architecture. So I'm used to hatching that way. And then I also, a line has a point, a start and a beginning. So if I give it a point and then move and give it another point, you'll see that in my work. That's pretty much a signature of that. So I'll just, and for people that are maybe wondering, yeah, I do draw this this strong on my on all my work.
That's a good point, Ian. Most people are worried about pencil lines.
There's always two drawings in every painting. One we do with this, and one we do with the brush, which this one will fade once we start putting color on it. This is the one that everybody sees. And so that's one of the things in the workshop where I'll be doing some demos talking about drawing with your brush and we'll skip this tool and we'll draw with this one. So that gives you a nice way to plan and gain some dexterity. Now, I've got some cast shadows. I'm just looking at my thing. I don't know if that's translating.
On a little bit. Yeah, what's it, is it from?
No, I think it's that.
The camera, yeah, the lower.
Yeah, this
camera.
right here.
That's blocking,
Yeah.
and so is my iPad.
Um,
That's why an
I can
iPad.
move this.
Okay.
Possibly, sort of, kind of.
Get ready for a 4-hour visual feast.
Got it over there. There we go. Woohoo.
Wow.
It's a light show. You didn't know you were in for that.
I didn't,
Okay.
but it is California, so you're up for anything.
All right.
All right. A little warm there.
I know. We're. All right. So what do you want this like this or you tell me? Higher?
Let me just check the brightness on this. Well, we're gonna have to dance with whatever we've got.
I can
here.
switch the lights too.
They're different.
Let me have a look.
bulbs.
I know. I think somebody broke one of our bulbs. That's why I'll have to bring another one in. You want to switch? We can switch.
All right, I'll tell a couple of stories then.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm making that up. I don't have any stories for you.
Oh, come on.
Actually, I do. My wife and friends went kayaking yesterday,
Yeah.
and a buddy of mine dropped his phone in the river,
Mhm.
and he was really bummed out because he'd just gotten it.
That's great.
And they then decided to do that, find my iPhone. So they found it, and it was in the river.
Wow.
You could see it, you zoom in.
Wow.
And then they decided to look at it a little bit later, and then it was on a road. And somebody had been snorkeling on this part of the river, found the phone, it rings, they answer it, boom, they get their phone back.
Wow.
And it sat underwater for like 4 hours.
This is one of those-
So I think it's one of those corners where there's a lot of people dumping stuff out that they just go and snorkel and get. But yeah, so you can, I told you I had a story.
Yay.
Okay, so let's get into this. What I want to do, again, here's the original, which is kind of flat. And so I want to play up this sort of idea of moody Scotland. You realize I'm not giving myself a lot of room for sky in this, and I'm giving myself a lot down here to play with in the water. And that's by design. I'm going to have a hazy sun, low sun that'll cast some shadows on or some highlights on top of some things, but also give me an opportunity to maybe reflect that in the light or in the water. So that's one thing when placing your horizon. You can lower it and have more sky. You can raise it and have more foreground. But as we get into the workshop, I'll explain that more. Some people think that horizon is just set and then you go from that. No, it's just a compositional tool. So, and I am using today a number of brushes, but mainly a Skoda Perlas and Ultimos. I've got a flat here, which is a Versatile, and a palette. So the first thing to do is know which of your waters is going to be clean and dirty. So I have these two, clean, dirty. I'm going to show you a little trick about making hills, softening the edge of hills without having to paint wet and wet, because that's, can be a little tricky. So always I add my water first. And these Scottish buildings, of course, are a dull stone, which is fine. So that's a little bit of raw sienna with a touch of violet. In here, I'm getting a mixture of both verditer and lavender. And this has been one that's kind of become one of my favorites. And then just a lick of alizarin crimson. It makes a really nice sky blue.
What was the B word?
Verditer. Verditer, however you want to pronounce it. Now I've got a well floor here, which has got some raw sienna or burnt sienna. This is a Winsor Newton. These are a couple of Holbeins. The rest are Daniel Smith paints. And then I'm not sure I want to even play around with green yet, but I'll think about it. Let's get a nice pink going there. And this is just a alizarin, and I'll add a little burnt sienna to that. And for me, I always mix my greens last because it tends to foul your water. So I'll just get, this is a little green gold. My new palette, and I have about, I don't know, 10, has no mixed greens on it. But I'm still playing around and seeing what I can do with that. So never make a move before you know what you're going to do. You got it. This is very much like chess. You want to see as many moves ahead as possible. First of all, I want to know my sun direction. We've talked about that. It's coming down. And I can play that up and manipulate it the way I want. But what I do want to do is show you this fairly simple technique for making distant hills look a little more natural. So this is just a warm gray at this point. I'm going to bleed that out. So those of you that have painted with me before will know that I'm relying on the bead now. And what that does is gives me time to make some decisions. I'm also thinking about what we call action lines, or I call action lines. Not sure what you call them. Where we have major shifts in the landscape that are noticeable. So whenever there's a line, so we've got this line of mountains against the sky, that's the most obvious. But then we've got another step where there's another range of mountains or hills coming towards us. That's another one. And then we've got the houses in the foreground. But in this stage of the painting, the main thing is not to overcook it. Is my head getting in the way? Are we good?
Great.
Great, huh? Okay. I'll take that. So now that's sort of that first part done. I'm going to come in with a kiss line, and that's just where I want this line to be noticeable, but I'm going to also let it touch here and there to let the water go through. I think we all understand the hazards of trying to tell watercolor what to do.
So is that why you call it kiss line? Because you let it kiss in places?
Yeah, I want gravity to do some work, and I want the colors to continue. So I've mixed all these colors. They're mixing on the page. Right now I've got that blue and that green separated. If I just touch it, it'll go through.
Talk about the temperature choices there.
Here,
It gets cooler and how you decided on that.
sure. Let me make up some lie. It's not really temperature. There's green, and I'm moving through that green into a complement, which is a red. So that's why I'm making that choice. The other thing that's so important in this is understanding that this value shift when it dries is going to be, it's not going to carry a lot of weight. The one thing I can do to absolutely know I'm going to ruin my painting is come in and push my values too much at the beginning.
So what would you say the consistency of your paint is right now then?
We would be in what Zbukvich would call a T. And but then I'll be painting around these areas of white that are important to me. I'll be painting around those.
And is this 140 pound? I think you use Saunders waterproof control.
Yes, this is 140-pound Saunders Waterford rough.
Ian, I saw one of the comments that people at home can't hear the questions, they can only hear you.
Okay, so I'll repeat.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
I've forgotten the last question.
The paper.
The paper is Saunders Waterford 140 cold press or 140 rough. Sorry. I'm not going to tell anybody anything.
No, I said.
Okay, so I'm just slowly making my way down. When I get up to the top, it should be dry and ready for me to go. We'll see. It's one of the nice things about painting somewhere else. You always have learn the humidity of where you are. I have many terrible experiences I can explain about expecting the desert to act like the Southeast or something like that. Here's some buff titanium, and I'm just going to grab that and see what that does to this stone. So watercolors, in my opinion, typically do a couple of things. First off, you may find yourself on the first wash doing something that's surprising and nice and beautiful, and you go, oh, I can't ruin that. But if that language gets into your mind, that's exactly what you will do, because then you will become protective of it and scared to take risks. And most of the time, for me anyway, watercolor is much more effective when you take a calculated risk.
Someone wanted to know if your paper was flat or on its slant.
It's on a very slight slant, but it's not the way I typically paint. I usually paint it at about a 10 to 15 degree angle, maybe a little more. For these kind of demos, so this doesn't keystone, I have to go a little bit smaller. So I'm slowing down because now I'm coming into some areas where I really do want to save some whites. And it's going to be important that I do so. And this is an old boatyard. All right, so.
Talk about how you determine where you put those lines.
I'll watch the way the papers, because it's not stretched, it's just taped down. But I'll watch the way the paper is reacting. So it'll have a roll to it. And then I'm always, and this is just watercolor, you're always looking for where areas are drying. So if I have these two wells here, or these two little puddles, so I need to think about getting that through, but do I want this color to invade this area of the painting? Which is no, the answer is no there. So sometimes I use it as a parking brake. Other times I'm using it as just a resting spot, or I may use it with the sole purpose of creating the kind of edge I want. So forcing blooms, that kind of thing. You got this old fella here.
Because when the paper ripples, you tend to get a
You can get a bloom, you can get, but we can also reactivate it a little bit if you want. We're getting close to the resolution of this first mother wash.
that green gold really just wonderful.
So I'm probably going to do something to it that you'll go, oh, wish you hadn't done that. But these are all, this is my painting. Yeah, I do take commissions. But this is where I start to have lots of little these spots where the white of the paper shows. I can zoom in on that and show you what I mean. Right. So is that kind of clear right there?
Yeah.
Let me show you. So I'll move into an area that's grass. And then there's another area that's grass over here. And the grass in Scotland is green for exactly the reason you would think. It's because it rains a lot. So I'm letting that set up. This is looking pretty good to me. I'm going to get some very light gray here. And start to tackle this shore. And this is where I'll use kiss lines again, because I like the how the colors mix on the paper. But also, if you think about these areas of where you've got grass meeting water, because the tide changes by about 12 feet here. So these banks are covered in lichens and seaweed and that kind of thing. So this little mixture of green really does quite a lot. Before I forget, which I am apt to do, get this guy in. Let's give him a little bit. The name of the game really is understand how and where your paint is drawing. And then stop fiddling with the little brushes as quickly as possible and get to the big ones.
Someone earlier asked what kind of perla brush. They're all synthetic, aren't they, perlas?
They are.
So maybe repeat that.
The Perla, this guy, it just has a great point. This is a 10. I use a 10, a 14, and an 8, and then sometimes something smaller. Typically, nothing too small. So I'm going to start bringing up some. So this edge has had its time to sit. So I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to come in with clear water, and I'm just going to touch it. So a lot of times people think just because I'm not using pigment, I'm not painting. That is not the case. Watch.
Well, then what are you doing?
Just I'm using clear water to paint rather than anything else. Okay, so I know I'm doing something up here that you're not expecting. Let me move out. All right. So this is ideally where you want to get. We've got some nice seaweed and junk on this. This little area of wall, and I can even put in some stronger. That's some undersea green. But I'm going to have a sun burst here that I want to reflect here. So I need to be a little bit careful. And I wasn't careful. It is a blue-gray. Not to be flippant there. It's so this well has always got sort of a mixture of French ultramarine and whatever my darks are. And so I'll just keep feeding that. That is generally a part of the painting that I don't, or a part of the mixing that I don't clean. And I just reuse that over and over. So let's make a nice. To a degree, but it's not. It doesn't have to be. It's just as long as it's not standing out too much right now, then it works for what I've got planned here. So I'm going to again use this. This is my favorite part of the mother wash. Don't get too caught up in that shape. We can make something more out of that. But I am going to get a little more depth in the water, because we'll create light by adding depth. So this is just French ultramarine, a little bit of raw sienna, and some alizarin crimson. And I'll get a little stronger, come down at the bottom. You'll notice if you're looking at my palette, things are getting thicker. That means the paint's getting more opaque. So there we go. That's the first mother wash of this. And this painting is kind of unique in that it really relies on this, and there's a lot of negative painting that's going to happen, but there's not as much as you think. This is, or at least as far as I have it planned. The more you can plan in your paintings, the better, obviously. The less you're reacting to what happens on your surface. And yeah, I'm just about to do it. So the less you can react to what you're seeing and maybe anticipate what's going to happen, the better. So I've got a little extra color there. I'm just going to very lightly dry a brush. There. This would be nice, maybe. Okay. Now, that's dry enough, so we can actually take this. I'm just going to turn this upside down. And I'm going to go through that back bit. Doesn't really matter what I'm doing here. I could start with sort of clearer water if I wanted. Because the thing that's important here is I leave a little bit of a sunburst there. And then B, what I'm doing is coming over this distant hill. And what that's going to do is really soften that edge. So even if I go to a couple of little extra strokes there, that'll help it. The other thing that's nice about doing that and flipping things back and forward is I'm allowing the sediment to really deepen. So we'll get some nice textural effects there, hopefully. Yeah, I'm always flipping my paper and doing different things with it.
Are you painting on the front side or the back side?
So I'm painting on the front side. Rough Saunders has a little more tooth. That's drying a little faster than I want. And then, I mean, it's mainly, I'll use different papers for different types of paintings.
Do you like the texture on the front side?
Yeah, Saunders is, it's a delicate paper. It's not as tough as Arches or Arch, but I find it to be more suitable to my type of painting. If I know I'm going to be doing a lot of heavy lifts and things like that, then I would gravitate towards Arches. But then Arches, I've kind of been using the 300-pound rough more because it's just seems to be able to take on more, and you get really nice brush strokes because the valleys between the peak and the trough of the paper is so exaggerated on that surface. So, and it's so absorbent that it's a dry brush, is really effective on that heavier paper. So I'm going to dry this rather quickly.
Do you want to dry it, or we take a break, or what do you want to do?
Let's get through one more and then we'll take a break. Not quite dry, but that'll work.
Ian?
Yep.
Can you also talk a little bit about the stuff you have on the table over there?
Yes, I have paintings that are obviously for sale, but just examples of my work. And if something strikes your fancy, let me know. I've been doing a lot of experimentation while everybody's been shut down. It's kind of nice. I didn't really get into doing any competitions or much of that. This, once 2020 kind of settled in to be what we discovered it was going to be, there's nothing you can do. So just live with what you've got and make the most of it. And I was one of these people that always complained about being on the road too much. Like, well, get used to not being on it. Yeah, I flew for more than 4 hours and was really freaked out. They give you one biscotti between here and Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's very generous.
Right, you got anything?
I was too. I was like Oliver Twist, like, thank you. Okay, so now we've got this. And the mother washes in. I need to do some work on this. I'm not worried about that because I know when I go in deeper value, I'm going to be able to do some things. I've got this softened edge here, We've still got a little bit of that green. So now what I need to do is bring this next bit forward. So if you think about it, each step, at least with me, the first one I cover most of the paper, and I leave the areas I really want you to look at that are going to be my subjects. I'll leave those or save those whites. And then I just begin taking away and adding detail as I see fit. Again, this isn't a story about what exactly am I seeing. It's a story about how do these shapes work? And do they tell a story that's in any way interesting to me? Now, if I were asked that question, my first smart aleck remark would be, no, they are not interesting to me, but that's just me being me. So that kind of gives us this idea of this next ridge. I can bring that down. I think that's going to do enough when I start, because I need to bring this forward. So these are the questions that always need answering and asking. A big house or a big tree there. And that'll give us just enough. If I need to do it, I'll do it later. So we've got a nice big tree here. One of the things that might be worth mentioning is I mix enough paint and I'm constantly mixing so that I can make these decisions on the fly without going back and sweating it. So at the end of every painting, ideally I should be throwing paint away. It also means that all of my mixes start with some of the base colors, which tends to unite the painting. The problem being when you stop to talk about things, you lose your train of thought.
Yeah.
That just you? Yes. Okay, I need to mix a nice dark for my trees, and I need to make a nice dark for my houses. So I'm going to take some burnt umber, alizarin or French ultramarine. And again, we're only moving into, we're making a value jump of, I don't know, basically the same pigment on top of it. And a little bit of that. Raw sienna just warms that up nicely. Okay, so I've got the trees that are surrounding this. So my next plan is, I know I'll get nice and deep, and these will be negative shapes. So the houses will come forward by what I paint around them. And then we'll begin adding detail as we feel. But the roofs need to stand out. And I always find that the quicker I can skim my brush and do little things, the more interesting the final shapes are. then the other part of that is I get really, really bored with darks that don't breathe. And by that, I mean sort of screen printed darks that don't have any play in them or give and take.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I think there should be areas that have more pigment that are darker, and then areas that should back up. I also think it's quite useful to, if I ever get in any kind of trouble, I automatically go to my well water. So I like a dark that has sort of all of that going for it. There's, I don't know, it's so easy to make boring marks. And especially if I'm doing windows and things like that, if I'm trying to be exact about it, that's what architectural illustration is. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to hold you by the hand and walk you through exactly what's going on in the painting. I want to give you enough information so that you can begin to make these decisions. But it's also very important that I hold back a little bit and give you enough room to play with how you perceive the shapes. So that's not bad. No, I'm going to get dirt in there, dirtier. Let's go with this guy. You know what happens if you've been on the road, for a long time and demoing in public, and you stop for a couple of years. It's a very interesting reintroduction, because things that I guess if you don't practice, you're gonna forget stuff. But then a lot of these things were second nature, like talking and painting. And I found that I've had a little more difficulty doing that. The first demo I gave this year, I was actually semi-frightened. But you never tell people that. I can tell you that now. But yeah, I'm not giving you that much information. Okay, let's drop in some forms. And then I'm going to grab some.
You did great, Ian. On your first Zoom, I was there. It was terrific.
Tile roof. It's actually not a tile roof, but I want it to be a tile roof. So it's a tile roof because this is mine. But I will end cap it or bookmark. Bookend it with another. So that's beginning to read. Maybe some downspouts. And then there's this wall here. Okay. Now this guy needs a little attention. We'll use the same. There's actually only one real city in Scotland that has these roofs, which is Coolross, because a shipping magnate brought them over. They don't have this color stone, you know, they don't have that tile.
Isn't that where they did a bit of the Outlander?
Yes, so my uncle and I were walking and suddenly all the buildings started going all gray. And there's a witchy looking broom and like, what's going on? And my uncle, it's like that damn American show. What American? What? And it was the set. So he ended up chatting with the one of the set designers and telling them probably that they were getting it all wrong. I took that as a cue just to get out of there and go do what I wanted to do. All right, so that's feeling good. I'm going to bring this down and then fade it out. I'm going to do a little bit of work on these boats. Then we'll take a little bit and step back because that'll be a nice time for me to see and judge my midtones. That's usually where people get lost. So paintings start out, they're this beautiful baby, they're full of promise. And then the subsequent washes, you slowly ruin the baby. And then the baby gets to be a teenager. And you've probably heard me say this before, but brings the car back in a different shape than it left. And it's only by getting through these situations that or through the midtones that you're going to have a successful painting. All right, so I'm going to paint around some of these stones. Is this still centered? Good. So I drove on my first California highway yesterday.
Did what?
I drove on the highway for the first time in California yesterday by myself.
Which one?
The 101. It wasn't as bad as I'd heard, but it was a Saturday, right? So
Yeah, that's where you were in Toronto.
I used to live in DC, and the perimeter there was horrible, but nothing like this. I'm assuming, which is why. And when I lived in Atlanta, I rode my bike everywhere because it's just such a pain. Okay, I'm gonna get some dark here. We're so close. Please don't leave me. My God, I don't know what I would do.
We've got 44 people online.
Hi, guys. How's everyone doing?
Doing
Don't
great.
sell that stock in Zoom just yet. All right, so we need to sprinkle. a little red.
So what did you do to your green right there?
Some blue. Because all these boats are covered in tarps and whatnot, you know. So it's really about mark making. It's what shape works. It's not, is that real? You've got to look at it from a different perspective. You've got to look at it in terms of shape, mark making. And does that shape work with what you're doing? And that letting go of reality is scary. But you got to do it. In the workshop, we'll talk about what I do to combat that. But the main thing is I do a lot of testing where I'll play and then, you know, I may make some marks on paper and then I'll try to turn it into something. And that just begins to train your brain to look for these changes and opportunities just to make a little quick brushstroke like that. Not that that's fantastic, but I might be able to turn that into something. But the other part of that being not being scared to make a mark like that. I just turned it into grass, so there. Oh. I got another guy here, but he'll have his orange. This guy I'm not going to mess around with just yet. There are always little orange bits in and around boats. I know. So no running in the hallway, everyone. Don't do it. I don't want to see you do it. We'll have the detentions. And what these marks mean to me, this is sort of the boat, the launch ramp for this boatyard. And what these marks mean to me, these are little areas where water is draining back down after the tide's gone out. All right, so green. And then the undersea green. All right, now we're gonna work this.
You used almost every single color in your palette.
I probably have. There's a certain amount of autopilot that you go on in demos. It's an incredibly, if you haven't tried it, I highly suggest it because it's fairly amusing. Is pull up a dog or two and try to teach them to paint because they'll listen to you. But just practice painting and talking at the same time. And then fielding questions. Now the dogs aren't so hot on questions, but it's And the swines never became good at painting at all after hours of construction. But that's, again, they couldn't really hold the brush, and there was all this complaining about that, and talking about thumbs, and I just, hey, imagine being my wife coming home and hearing a conversation in the studio, and there's only one car in the driveway. What are you doing? Hey, nothing. Who are you talking to? I'm teaching the dogs to paint. Because when I decided I wanted to teach, I knew I had to learn how to do that. And then I watched a lot of videos, of course, too. That's feeling pretty good. Now, so this is standing out. I'm just going to grab a couple of things here and pop some rocks in, and then we'll take a break.
So I know you're not done, but is the building right above where you're adding the rocks, is that closer to us?
Yeah, so I'll end up doing some more sort of, it'll get some more attention.
And the long gray with the dormer windows, that's back pretty far.
This,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we start really sort of shifting things with the darks. Okay, so I need to, one more move. Clear water in, but I want to get just a little bit of some tone because I want to. There we go. Then I'm just going to come and do exactly what I did the last time. And let that activate. Now there's a brush stroke that's semi-visible here that I want to obscure. That's no problem. Just give it one of those. Okay. Then I'm just going to go through. Now I need to ask myself a couple important questions. Is that too interesting a mark? But it is going to be a placeholder for a major portion of the painting.
Is it on a photo?
Nope, it's in my mind, which is probably more dangerous. So there we go. Let me. We really don't have much to do here.
We've got 48 people signed in from online.
So again, I can let it roll around, especially when you've got pigments like French ultramarine and things there. They'll find those little hits in the paper and do nice things. Sometimes they'll be vicious and hurt you. There we go. We may now all have breaks.
So just tell them we're gonna take a 10-minute break.
We are going to take a 10-minute break and we will see you all when we return. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have some snacks in our kitchen and also free food to take. What a fun from very good.
You can say we're back.
We're back. Okay. So, and I'm looking actually at the thumbnail of this, which I find helpful. Another thing you can do, which a friend of mine, Bill Hook, does, is just takes a picture of it and looks at it at a smaller scale. Or one of the most important things you can do at this stage of it is take a photograph and turn it black and white. That will show you what your values are.
Mhm.
So, are we ready? I need to get more interested here. I need more pops. Okay. I need these greens to work out for me. And I didn't change my well water, which is not that big of a deal.
You can change it for you right now if you want.
Nah, let's have fun. Okay. So I'm just creating a nice dark green. The other thing I'm going to do is begin working up my shadow color, which is a French ultramarine. And those of you that have ever taken a workshop with me should be able to sing along at home. French ultramarine, alizarin crimson. And you can choose to let that go on the violet or the blue side. And then to take some of the chroma out, a little burnt sienna. And that makes a very nice shadow color. But again, on a value scale, we're still talking about a 3, maybe a 4. I don't sprinkle around 5s and 6s, you know. I like the subtle stuff and then I give it a pop at the end. The thing is, in order to know where to put those pops, you got to wait till the end. I'll shut up and paint. Please shut up and paint, sir. All right, so that's not strong enough. If it looks right when it goes down, it's not right. Always going to dry lighter. All right. All right, so we get into my darks. So by painting negatively, and that doesn't mean with a bad attitude, by painting negatively, I will define the shape of these houses. All right, so that worked there. Try it again. And never let a pencil line tell you where to put your brush. This isn't, not preschool. And these aren't coloring books. So you make your decisions there. But I am really concentrating on the shapes. Now these guys are a little too close together shape-wise. Maybe even let that do something there. Paint around the chimney pots.
Your head is popping in a little bit on the painting. It's okay with us, but it's
No.
just like you know.
It gives me nightmares of shooting DVDs the whole time. It's head, which they thought was really funny since that movie, I Married an Axe Murderer. You doing no. Good. That makes me feel wonderful. They thought it was hilarious.
It's funny, I just watched that movie recently.
It takes me right back to my days of shooting that video, which, if you want to feel extremely uncomfortable, have someone film you while you're painting.
Were those trees in the reference photo, or you just added them?
They were in, yep. I'm not going to show it to you again so you can check my work though.
You don't sell your paintings with the photo reference right next to it?
No, I've done that. And,
Really?
well, if you're painting somewhere like New York or something,
Yeah.
and you are lucky enough to sell something off the easel. The people are going to make that connection. People don't tend to look that, specifically at what you're painting. Now, New Yorkers have an extremely accurate sense of place and what things look like, but I'll have been painting on site and someone says, I've walked by that every day. And I know that you haven't because I've moved buildings 5 blocks. Like nobody's ever seen that. And this little happy character, the sun, there actually are 2 of them. So, okay, now let me use. Go.
We learned this one last time. This was cool.
Well, it's not a gimmick.
No, but it worked.
It works. And it's a really nice way to tie your paintings together. The foreground and the background. So there's no question about what's going on there. There's a lot of masts. Now you can get carried away with masts. I suggest you don't do that. All right, now it's time to start playing with some detail. Now, even if I were painting much larger than I am, you'd have to be right in here with me to see what exactly I'm doing, because these are just little ticks. That I'm using to describe window, but I'm not, I'm just not overly concerned with actually saying window. Okay, boats.
There's a lot of stuff in that little picture.
Yeah, but there's enough stuff where we can just say it's all, it's make believe. Let's just play. That the idea that you got to get it right, and if you don't get it right, the whole thing's ruined. And oh, I didn't make that shape just, it doesn't look like a boat. Well, go back. Don't do the study or speculate, don't try and paint on things that mean something that you spent time drawing. Take one boat and try and paint that in the manner that I'm showing you. Don't do it on a big painting that then if you ruin, you're going to feel bad. Do it on a painting that, use your sketchbook. But I always love how these fairly simple shapes just, there we go. Say boat. For those of you at home, or those of you over there.
Is there neutral tints in that dark?
Yes, I mean, there is some, but I'm being careful with my darks. So that gives you an idea of what I'm doing up there. It's so crazy. It's the same camera I use. I, ooh, I am, so there's a sketch here. There's a photograph on this guy. And so I use both. And typically that's what I'll do. If I sit down to sketch, the first thing I do before I put pencil to paper is take a photograph of what I'm, from the exact vantage point. And then, excuse me, I'll use that with I'll use the reference photography, the sketchbook, all of that to come up with things. But I'm telling you, I don't let reality get in the way of any of my imagination and the way that I'm going to do things. I don't look at that, reality as being anything helpful.
version of this scene a few times?
I've done it twice, I think. Once, the first time I ever did it was a painting that went to the Signature American. And then there's certain paintings that make decent demos, so I've done it before. But every time I paint it, so there's the thing. You've got to be, it's got to be different. You're going to see new things. You notice that I don't have a photograph of the painting that I've done before, because that's not relevant here. That's not going to help me. Okay, let's get a little bit of more of this light red. And we'll just put now, I don't want that to be as strong as this. I'm going to just get clear water.
So when you started, you talked about wanting to have the vanishing point higher. Would you say it's a third of the way up? A third of the way from the top?
What about? But that's not, I'm not playing rules of thirds here. Yes, there is a method to my composition. But I'm trained as an architect, so I'm thinking much more in terms of balance and the way these shapes interact rather than, are they hitting a certain spot?
Well, you said you want to really focus on the reflection of the water too.
Well, actually, I want your eye up here. I just wanted to be able to come down here and play and then go up. There's one thing that I'm going to do to finish this. I should make that pretty obvious, I think. Oh, maybe not. We'll see. I always find that if you do windows and you're too careful, you paint them perfectly square as well as you can, they have so much less character than just making a couple of really quick strokes. The other thing is that it's much easier to do it the quick way. And well, to me anyways, it's much more effective. All right. We'll put a little jumper on this fella. A blue jumper. But again, you got to understand what you're painting. This is a demonstration painting. So I need to think about, okay, what are the effects that I want to show you? And what are the things that I want to walk you through? And then where do I just back off and not worry about it? And structural paintings, much different. But I am thinking about starting to connect my darks there. And if we have, is there a time limit that I'm trying to hit here? Don't say now, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're fast. No, 3:30, 4 o'clock, whatever you're done.
Oh, good. Settle in, grab a bag of chips, folks. Be here for a while.
Because it depends on how bad you want to get the citizen.
Yeah, I'm guessing Santa Cruz is not going to happen. But into all life, a little rain is fall. And isn't it raining in north of here?
Well, what?
Because I sure didn't bring a raincoat to California.
It's not that kind of rain.
Yeah,
It'll be dry before you see a puddle.
yeah. I was gonna say,
Yeah, at least.
what idiot brings their raincoat?
A what?
Yeah,
Raincoat?
it's this thing that you wear when sometimes the sky drops water onto you.
Not here.
And when that happens, you can become what's called wet.
Oh, you mean run the sprinkler?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's clearly one of our seasons, the rainy season. And it's
Yeah.
the only one.
It's pretty nutty coming in and seeing how low all the reservoirs are.
Oh,
It's really, it's frightening.
it is, it is, it is.
So I'm not trying to make light of that. Please don't think I am.
Oh, no, it's,
I'm putting a little, just some accent color on that building. Dun, dun, dun. I think we're good. So we just need to mix up the last little bit.
Sue, who's in Seattle right now, said the Northwest call it wet sunshine.
Well, if it's only raining like it should in the Northwest, then that's called good Scottish weather.
There you go.
Herman Pico is in Scotland now, or just finished up. And he said it was freezing. And I was looking at pictures. It's beautiful. The sun's out. That's as good as it gets, man.
Well, if you're not used to the damp cold,
Yeah,
probably wouldn't.
I think Angus became, and I had a little bit of a laugh there. Okay, so it's all, we're gonna make this one move. And then I'm going to think about what I've done. So again, I'm moving my brush quite quickly there. But it's just to get to that edge and then simplify it in some form. And then this guy. Okay, it helps to have your paper square. Let me get some violet. That green and that violet really like each other.
Is that the imperial violet you were using before?
Imperial purple,
Yeah. Imperial purple.
yeah. I'm gonna hit this with some fairly strong color. I'm just gonna let it roll around. And I think some burnt sienna in here. So this is what I'm talking about. Temperature. Now I'm thinking it because we're close. So I'm thinking warm. But this is one of those Scottish days that Herman was talking about. Now, we're live, right? This is broadcasting out to some people.
We can pause it.
Well, some of you have heard me say this before. And for some of you, this will be new. But if you want a kiss, you need to stand up and ask for one, right? Otherwise, you're some kind of weirdo creep. And ask nicely. But it still takes courage. The final moves on any painting, especially with your darks, take courage. So if you want a kiss from your painting at the end, you've got to stand up and ask for it. I will not go into the unbelievable and embarrassing stories about why I know that. Why? No, this would have been in like 7th, 8th grade. At one at junior high school dance. You walk the girl up to the doorway. I gotta ask for a kiss, gotta ask for a kiss. And then your buddy, they drop them off first. And he successfully asks for a kiss and gets one. And then the pressure's on big time. Good Lord, really? And then the long walk of shame home, back to the car, because you didn't. Then the terrible walk of shame back to the front door, because your father will not let you into the car until you go back and ask. Yes. Followed by, or during that, there's a lot of very heated back and forth whispered. All right. So visualize the stroke. I'll also tell you this. Fathers of 13-year-old girls don't like you to come back on the porch and knock on the door again. It's like, what did you forget, buddy? I need to talk to so-and-so. You had a chance there, son. All right, so. Thick, thin. He didn't ask for a kiss. Dude, his dad sent him back out to the. No, that would have. would have died a horrible death. Now, you want to look at it from all sides. Make sure there's not any blooms that you really don't want to have. But for a demo, and I don't really think I could put a lift in, but I kind of like this being one shape. In fact, I'm probably going to make it bigger. And then I'll give it one little tickle. Sky. Oops. You're not too shy. And there we go. The only thing I need to do is sign it. And we might as well use this. It'll do some nice stuff in there. You just want to make sure it's not doing stuff up in your sky. There we go. So there we have, oops. There we have St. Andrews Harbor, dry docks.
People, watchers who are watching you, just saying thanks for the demo and
Wisdom.
yeah, your
Wisdom and then don't tell anybody the story about my embarrassing moments at my
I already said
junior
no,
high
Instagram.
dance. Oh, great. Oh, wonderful. Isn't that grand? But thanks, everyone, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Can you hold it up for us also? Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's pretty good stuff, eh? So, yeah.
Very nice.
No, it's whenever I get through a demo, I'm just a little bit happy that